My son Noah had been counting down the days for months, marking each one off on his little robot calendar with bright red markers. He was turning 6, and despite all the chaos Victoria and my parents brought into our lives like a tornado of criticism and manipulation, I was absolutely determined to give him one perfect memory. Just one day where everything would be exactly as he dreamed it, where his smile wouldn't be interrupted by adult cruelty. I had spent weeks transforming our small apartment living room into a wonderland of Lego blocks and robot decorations. Every corner held carefully placed details, metallic streamers that caught the afternoon light, hand-drawn robot blueprints taped to the walls, and miniature Lego constructions Noah and I had built together during our evening creative sessions. The coffee table was covered with my professional sketches and design samples, pushed aside to make room for the party setup that I had planned with the same precision I used for my most important client presentations. As a freelance graphic designer, I understood the power of visual storytelling, and I had spent 3 sleepless nights creating something truly magical. The centerpiece was a cake that represented months of planning and love, hand-sculpted fondant pieces shaped like tiny Lego blocks, each one carefully painted with edible gold and silver that sparkled under the apartment lights. The main structure was a perfect robot, complete with LED eyes that actually blinked in sequence and articulated arms that moved when you pressed a hidden button. Noah's obsession with building and creating had inspired every single detail. This wasn't just a dessert, it was an interactive art piece designed specifically for a 6-year-old engineer's dreams. "Mum, will the robot eyes really light up like the ones in my drawings?" He had asked me every single morning for 2 weeks, bouncing on his toes with pure excitement, his small hands gesturing wildly as he described his vision. "Will it be bigger than the birthday robot I saw in that YouTube video? Will it make sounds too?" His enthusiasm filled our apartment with joy and made every hour of detailed work feel like a privilege. This wasn't just a cake, it was a labor of love from one creator to another, a bridge between my professional skills and my devotion as a mother. But the moment Victoria sauntered through my front door, fashionably late as always and treating my home like her personal stage, I felt my stomach drop and my chest tighten with familiar dread. She swept in wearing oversized designer sunglasses indoors, her perfectly manicured nails gripping a pristine white box from Château Sucré, the most exclusive patisserie in the city where a simple cupcake cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The box itself was a statement. Pearl-white cardboard with gold-embossed lettering and silk ribbon that probably cost more than the ingredients for my entire homemade creation. "I brought a real cake," she announced with that familiar smirk that never reached her eyes, deliberately placing her expensive box directly in front of mine on the counter with theatrical precision. "I couldn't bear to let Noah suffer through another one of your earnest artistic experiments. Children deserve professional quality." Patricia and Robert started laughing before she even finished her sentence, their wine glasses already half empty despite the party starting only 20 minutes ago. Of course they did. They always took Victoria's side, treating her cruelty like sophisticated humor. "Well, Victoria's always had such refined taste," Patricia said, taking a long sip of the expensive wine Victoria had brought, the bottle probably costing more than my monthly utility bill. "Yours is so sincere." "Such a sweet attempt, Evelyn. Very authentic and homemade looking." Robert nodded approvingly at Victoria's pristine box, adjusting his glasses to examine the gold embossing. "This is what professional craftsmanship looks like. Maybe you'll learn something about presentation today. It's never too late to develop proper standards." I should have stood my ground right then and there. I should have told them all to leave my home immediately and take their poisonous attitudes with them. But Noah was practically vibrating with joy in his robot t-shirt, convinced that Aunt Victoria was being generous and loving. He thought he was getting double the celebration, twice the magic. The trust in his eyes stopped me from protecting him the way I should have. Noah ran over the moment Victoria started opening her pristine white box with dramatic flourish, his little face absolutely glowing with anticipation and wonder. He had changed into his favorite robot t-shirt specifically for this moment, the one with glow-in-the-dark circuit patterns that he had chosen carefully from his birthday outfit options. At first glance, her creation looked absolutely flawless and intimidating in its perfection. Smooth vanilla buttercream frosting applied with professional precision, decorated with delicate sugarwork that sparkled like tiny diamonds under my apartment lights. The piping work was technically perfect, executed with the kind of skill that comes from expensive culinary training. Even tiny marzipan robots were perched around the edges, painted with edible gold leaf that caught the light beautifully. I had to admit, from a purely technical standpoint, it was stunning. The kind of cake that would photograph perfectly for social media, which was probably exactly what Victoria had in mind. But when Victoria sliced into it with theatrical flourish, wielding the silver cake server like a conductor's baton, and handed Noah the first piece on a delicate china plate, something hit me like a freight train barreling through my consciousness. The smell. That unmistakable stomach-turning smell that made my artist's nose recoil instantly and sent alarm bells screaming through my brain. Pet food. Actual canned dog food, the cheap kind with chunks of unidentifiable meat, mixed into the cake layers between the expensive frosting and what looked like store-bought vanilla sponge. The contrast was deliberate and cruel beautiful presentation hiding something disgusting just like Victoria herself. Noah took an enormous, trusting bite, his small mouth opening wide with excitement. The room exploded with laughter that felt like glass breaking against my eardrums. Not from the two little friends he had invited, whose small faces were frozen in horror and confusion as they witnessed something they couldn't understand. The cruel, delighted laughter came from Victoria. Patricia, Robert, and the two Instagram influencer friends Victoria always brought as her personal audience and validation squad. And Robert had his phone out, recording everything in high definition for posterity. His finger steady on the record button as my son's world crumbled. "It's just a harmless prank," Victoria cackled, gesturing dramatically with her manicured hands as Noah spat out the disgusting mixture and began sobbing with confusion and betrayal. "Oh my God, he's being so dramatic. It's not even that bad. Kids eat weird things all the time. Children these days need much thicker skin," Robert added, still filming every second of my son's humiliation with the dedication of a war correspondent. "The real world's going to be much tougher than this. Better he learns now." Patricia waved her wine glass in my direction dismissively, the expensive liquid sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "You coddle him far too much, Evelyn. He'll never survive in the real world if you keep treating him like he's made of delicate glass. This is good for his character." The worst part was watching Noah's little face crumble as he realized the adults were laughing at his pain rather than helping him. His robot shirt was stained with frosting and tears, his birthday joy completely shattered. I scooped my son into my arms and carried him out of that living room, his small body trembling with confused sobs that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. He clung to me desperately, sticky frosting still smeared across his chin and his favorite shirt. His 6th birthday completely destroyed by the people who were supposed to love him unconditionally. I never even got to light the candles on the robot cake I had spent days perfecting. Never got to see his face glow in the candlelight as he made his birthday wish. And not one family member followed us out. Not a single person showed any concern or remorse. They remained in my living room, eating Victoria's disgusting creation and continuing their party as if Noah was just an inconvenient interruption to their entertainment, as if his pain was merely the opening act to their main performance. I could hear them through the thin walls, their laughter continuing unabated, Patricia's voice rising as she told some story about Victoria's latest social media success. Later that night, while Noah slept curled against my chest in our bed, his small body still occasionally shuddering with leftover sobs, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My jaw was clenched so tightly it sent shooting pains up to my temples, and my hands were balled into fists that I couldn't seem to unclench. "They humiliated my baby," I whispered into the darkness, my voice barely audible but filled with a rage that surprised me with its intensity. They turned his innocent joy into their twisted joke. They filmed his pain like it was entertainment. At first, I wanted nothing more than peace and distance. A clean break from all their toxicity so Noah and I could heal in quiet safety. But then I discovered something that changed the entire game and revealed exactly what kind of people I was dealing with. 3 weeks later, while cleaning out my car after giving Victoria a ride to her weekly spa appointment at the luxury resort, where she pretended to be a successful entrepreneur, I found a folder she had accidentally left behind in my passenger seat. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold and my hands shake with fury credit applications, loan paperwork, bank statements, and business formation documents, all bearing my name and signature, but not my real signature. Victoria had been systematically stealing my identity for months, maybe even years. Multiple credit card applications totaling over $40,000 in debt. A business loan for $75,000 from a commercial lender. Investment account applications using fabricated pay stubs that claimed I earned 3 times my actual freelance income. She had even created a fake consulting company called Evelyn Creative Solutions and was using it to apply for business credit lines, merchant accounts, and professional equipment leases. My sister, the woman who called herself an influencer and lifestyle guru with thousands of followers watching her perfect life, had been funding her entire fake existence by systematically destroying my financial future. She thought I would never discover it, that I was too busy struggling as a single mother and freelance artist to monitor my credit reports or fight back against her sophisticated fraud. She had calculated that I was weak, distracted, overwhelmed, and easily manipulated. That's when something fundamental shifted inside me, like a switch being flipped that couldn't be turned off again. They called me weak, pathetic, a failure who couldn't even protect her child's birthday or create a real cake. So I decided to show them exactly what kind of opponent they had underestimated. But not with screaming or begging or emotional outbursts that they could dismiss as hysteria. With cold, calculated precision that would leave no room for mercy or second chances. I didn't react immediately, though every instinct screamed at me to confront her right away. That's exactly what they always expected from me: explosive emotions. Desperate confrontations, tears they could brush aside and use as evidence of my instability. Instead, I became methodical and strategic in a way that surprised even me. While Noah slowly healed with help from the art therapy sessions I arranged through his school counselor, I quietly began documenting everything Victoria had done with the thoroughness of a forensic investigator. I made copies of every forged document, photographed the fake signatures from multiple angles with professional lighting, and began building an airtight case that would stand up to legal scrutiny. Using my graphic design skills and attention to detail, I created comprehensive comparison charts showing the subtle but clear differences between my authentic signature and her clumsy forgeries. I documented every fake pay stub with timestamps and metadata, every fraudulent application with cross-references to my real financial records, every lie she had constructed in her elaborate house of cards. I treated it like the most important design project of my career, because in many ways Victoria was bold and reckless, I'll give her that. She thought identity theft was just another clever manipulation that didn't really matter because we were family, because she could always charm or bully her way out of consequences. She had no idea she was dealing with someone who understood evidence, documentation, presentation, and the power of visual proof. The first place I visited was my bank, walking in with a professionally organized portfolio containing copies of my actual income records. Samples of my genuine signature under magnification and clear, undeniable evidence of the fraud laid out like a legal brief. When I spoke to the fraud division manager, my voice was steady and businesslike, presenting the facts with the same calm confidence I used when pitching to my most demanding clients. By the time I left that bank, the fraud division had opened a formal investigation with Victoria as the primary suspect. They assured me I wouldn't be held responsible for any of her debts, and they flagged her social security number and known aliases for immediate investigation across multiple financial institutions. But Victoria was about to get a much more unpleasant surprise than frozen accounts and credit freezes. The damage to my child went far beyond money or credit scores. The humiliation Robert had filmed, and the way they had all laughed at Noah's pain required a response that matched the cruelty they had shown a 6-year-old boy. I began making carefully planned phone calls to people Victoria assumed I had lost contact with over the years, people she had dismissed as unimportant or beneath her notice. Her former roommate, Jasmine, a talented graphic designer who Victoria had refused to pay for a complex website redesign, claiming the work was amateur and not what she ordered. A local bakery owner Victoria had publicly destroyed in vicious online reviews after a minor mix-up with a custom order, calling the woman unprofessional and clearly incompetent. Most importantly, her ex-boyfriend Marcus, the kind-hearted man she had convinced our entire family was emotionally abusive and controlling, when in reality she had systematically drained his savings account and abandoned him during his chemotherapy treatments, when he could no longer afford to fund her lifestyle. One by one, I gathered exactly the ammunition I needed. collecting stories and evidence that painted a clear picture of Victoria's pattern of manipulation and fraud. Then came the perfect opportunity for strategic deployment. Victoria's fiancé Harrison was planning an extravagant engagement brunch to impress his wealthy family, the kind of event that would cost more than my monthly rent and be photographed for her social media empire. His parents were old-money aristocrats, the type who wore family crests to casual meals, spoke in clipped, judgmental tones about suitable people, and conducted background checks on anyone entering their social circle. Victoria had spent months carefully constructing a flawless persona for them, presenting herself as a successful digital entrepreneur with a thriving social media consultancy, multiple revenue streams, and an impeccable family background. She had even created fake business references and fabricated client testimonials. So I decided to give them a more accurate and complete picture of who they were welcoming into their family. I sent an anonymous package to the brunch venue, wrapped in elegant paper that matched their sophisticated aesthetic. Inside the beautiful gift box was a framed photograph, a high-resolution screenshot from Robert's party video showing Noah crying with frosting and dog food smeared on his robot shirt, while Victoria's face was frozen mid-laugh, holding a forkful of her disgusting creation with obvious delight. No letter, no explanation, no emotional appeals. Just the raw, undeniable truth captured in perfect digital clarity. Victoria's panic was immediate and deeply satisfying to witness from a distance. I know because she called me 6 times in 90 minutes, each voicemail more frantic than the last. I let every call go unanswered, savoring the sound of her desperation. Her text messages became increasingly unhinged. "You're completely insane! How could you try to destroy my future? You're sick and jealous and pathetic." But I was far from finished with my methodical destruction of her carefully constructed lies. Harrison's parents had attended a charity art auction the previous week, one of those high society events where the wealthy gather to feel charitable while networking. I had quietly introduced myself as Victoria's devoted sister, telling them how absolutely thrilled I was to welcome such a distinguished and accomplished family into our close-knit circle. Then I casually handed them what appeared to be an elegant auction program, but was actually a comprehensive dossier I had designed with the same attention to detail I used for my most important client presentations. Detailed documentation of every business Victoria had defrauded, copies of Better Business Bureau complaints against her various fake companies, testimonials from people she had scammed, and for the finishing touch, high-resolution copies of all the identity theft paperwork bearing my forged signature. The design was professional, the evidence was overwhelming, and the presentation was impossible to dismiss as the ravings of a jealous sister. That engagement brunch was cancelled within 3 hours of the delivery. Victoria arrived at the exclusive venue in her $1,500 designer dress, her hair professionally styled and her makeup camera ready, only to find absolutely no one waiting to celebrate with her. The humiliation was complete, public, and perfectly documented by the society photographers who had been hired to capture her triumph. She called Patricia in absolute hysterics, her carefully modulated influencer voice cracking with genuine panic for the first time in years. And naturally, Patricia immediately blamed me for the destruction of her golden child's perfect life. "You destroyed her chance at real happiness," Patricia screamed through the phone, her voice shrill with whine and outrage. "Harrison's family could have given her everything she deserved. You ruined her entire future out of petty jealousy and spite." I let her rage and call me every vicious name she could think of, listening to years of pent-up resentment pour out of her. Then I said exactly 5 words that silenced her completely. "You filmed my son crying." The silence that followed was deafening and stretched for what felt like an eternity. Then I hung up and blocked their number permanently. But the damage to Noah ran deeper than I had initially realized, extending far beyond one ruined birthday party. He was still having nightmares about birthday celebrations, waking up crying in the middle of the night with dreams of people laughing at him. He flinched whenever anyone mentioned cake or parties, and the joy had been drained from the very things that used to make him happiest. The trauma had stolen something fundamental from my creative, joyful child, and that theft required its own form of justice. So I decided to reclaim his birthday properly and show him what real love looked like in action. I reached out to Mrs. Caroline, the owner of a small neighborhood bakery that Victoria particularly despised and had targeted with her online cruelty. Victoria had posted scathing reviews calling the place amateur, unsanitary, and clearly run by someone with no business sense, after Mrs. Caroline had refused to remake a complex custom cake for free. When Victoria changed her design demands at the last minute and then tried to negotiate the price down, I showed Mrs. Caroline the video clip from Noah's ruined party, watching her face carefully as she witnessed what Victoria had done to an innocent child. She watched in complete silence, tears filling her gentle eyes as she absorbed the cruelty and malice that had been directed at a 6-year-old boy who had done nothing wrong. "That poor baby," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "How could anyone be so cruel to a child?" The following weekend, we held Noah's real birthday celebration in a space filled with genuine love and care. Just him, me, and the people who truly cherished him without conditions or expectations. Mrs. Caroline closed her entire bakery for the day and transformed it into a robot wonderland that rivaled anything I could have created with my professional design skills. She had spent the week creating the most magnificent cake I had ever seen, a 3-dimensional robot with working LED components, hydraulic arms that moved with the press of a button, and a sound system that played Noah's favorite robot sound effects. The base was surrounded by edible Lego constructions that looked like they belonged in a children's museum. And the most beautiful part? Noah's smile. A genuine, radiant, trusting smile that reached his eyes and reminded me of the boy he had been before Victoria's cruelty touched his life. No pet food, no humiliation, no family members treating him like their personal entertainment. Just pure, uncomplicated love from people who valued his happiness above their own amusement. Revenge has a peculiar way of completing itself in absolute silence, building momentum like an avalanche that becomes unstoppable. Victoria never faced jail time, but the fraud investigation moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. The bank froze all her accounts immediately, leaving her unable to pay for her luxury apartment, her car lease, or any of the expensive lifestyle accessories that maintained her influencer image. Harrison broke their engagement within 48 hours and moved to another state to avoid the scandal that was spreading through their social circles like wildfire. Her carefully constructed social media empire collapsed as news of her fraud became public knowledge, shared and reshared by people who had suspected her perfect life was too good to be true. Sponsors dropped her, collaboration deals vanished, and her follower count plummeted as people realized they had been watching an elaborate performance funded by stolen money. Patricia and Robert begged me to reconsider my silence when Victoria was forced to move back into their house. Unemployed and completely disgraced, her designer clothes packed in garbage bags because the repo men had taken her luxury luggage. I said nothing to their pleas, not because I had found forgiveness in my heart, but because silence after years of their noise was the most powerful punishment I could possibly deliver. Every ignored phone call, every unanswered text, every holiday invitation that went unacknowledged was a reminder that actions have consequences. 4 months passed in peaceful quiet that felt like a gift I gave myself daily. I stopped inviting them to holidays and family events. I ignored their phone calls completely, letting them ring into the void. I didn't even bother blocking their numbers anymore because their desperation had become background noise. They were screaming into an absolute void, and I had made complete peace with that reality. But Victoria wasn't ready to accept defeat or take responsibility for the destruction she had brought upon herself. When she believed she had lost everything and exhausted all other options, she discovered one final desperate card to play. She attempted to sue me for what she termed emotional sabotage and intentional interference with business relationships, claiming I had deliberately destroyed her engagement and caused her severe psychological trauma that prevented her from working. She appeared at my apartment door with legal documents and her practiced victim expression, the same face she used for her social media posts about overcoming challenges and staying positive. "You think you're so righteous, don't you?" she hissed through gritted teeth, her carefully maintained facade finally cracking to reveal the ugliness underneath. "You're just bitter because your life is pathetic and small and your kid is emotionally damaged. You couldn't stand seeing me succeed." I didn't allow her to finish her performance. I closed the door calmly and immediately called my attorney. a sharp woman who specialized in fraud cases and had been following Victoria's situation with professional interest. Victoria's lawsuit was completely without merit, built on lies and desperation rather than any legal foundation. But I had no intention of simply defending myself and waiting for the case to be dismissed. I wanted her to experience genuine helplessness and consequences for the first time in her privileged life. So I filed comprehensive complaints with the State Fraud Office, including every piece of banking evidence I had meticulously collected and documented. Then I forwarded everything to Harrison's family law firm, who had quietly begun pursuing Victoria for misrepresentation in their prenuptial negotiations, and were now very interested in criminal charges. For the final strategic move, I contacted the school district where Victoria had recently applied for a guidance counsellor position, hoping to reinvent herself as someone who helped vulnerable children overcome challenges. Yes, the same woman who found it hilarious to feed a crying 6-year-old pet food and film his humiliation wanted to work with emotionally vulnerable children who needed protection and support. I sent them the audio from Robert's party video, professionally cleaned and enhanced to ensure perfect clarity. Just the sound, no visuals necessary. The words were crystal clear and damning. "Oh, come on, it's just a harmless joke. He'll get over it." Victoria's voice bright with cruel amusement, followed by Patricia saying, "Keep filming this. This is absolutely social media gold." And then the laughter. So much cruel, heartless laughter at a child's expense. They withdrew her job interview offer the next business day and flagged her application in their system. Victoria tracked down my workplace address and attempted to cause a public scene outside my office building, screaming accusations and threats while my colleagues watched through the windows. This time I remained completely silent and professional, but building security spoke for me with the authority I couldn't muster. It happened to be Mrs. Caroline's nephew working as head of security, a man who had heard the whole story and had strong opinions about people who hurt children. He escorted Victoria off the property with all the dignity she deserved, which was none, leaving her with one final message that echoed in the parking lot. You attack someone's child and film it for entertainment. Don't act surprised when the entire community turns its back on you. Some lines can't be uncrossed. After that final humiliating incident, Victoria disappeared from the city entirely like smoke dissipating in the wind. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved in with a distant cousin several towns away. Her social media empire reduced to a private Instagram account with fewer than 50 followers. She had deleted all her professional accounts, changed her phone number, and last anyone knew was working part-time at a discount retail store she used to publicly mock in her influencer content. Patricia and Robert never acknowledged their cruelty or showed any understanding of what they had done to Noah. They sent one final attempt at contact. A handwritten birthday card for Noah containing a wrinkled $5 bill that looked like it had been found in an old purse. No apology. No recognition of the damage they had caused or the pain they had inflicted. Just one pathetic line scrawled in Patricia's shaky handwriting, "You're still family." Don't punish us forever. I let Noah tear it into pieces without telling him who had sent it, watching him approach the task with the same focus he brought to his Lego projects. He didn't ask questions about the card or the money, just grinned up at me and said, "Can we still get pizza and work on my robot project today? I want to add more LED lights." And I smiled back with genuine joy and said, "Absolutely, with extra cheese and all the LEDs your heart desires." Because that was the real victory that mattered. Not the revenge, not the silence, not even the justice, but the peace that came from knowing I never had to explain, defend, or justify our happiness to anyone ever again. Victoria had destroyed herself with her own greed and cruelty. Patricia and Robert had severed their own relationship with their grandson through their choices and their laughter. And me? I continued creating beautiful things with real love and intention, building a future that no one could ever steal from us again. Noah's smile was brighter, his creativity was flourishing, and our small apartment was filled with the kind of joy that can't be faked or bought or stolen.